7,600 men, women, and children determined by social workers to be feeble-minded or promiscuous were sterilized, usually without their consent, and it was perfectly legal.
Little boys, they would castrate them. Little girls, they would go inside them and take out their organs.
State Representative Larry Womble.
Why would they want to do that to a young girl?
Why did they?
Well, they had several reasons they thought were valid at that time.
Their reasons were based on a scientific theory called eugenics, which became popular in the 1920s. Eugenicists believed that poverty, promiscuity, and alcoholism were inherited traits. It was a simple theory with a radical solution.
Yeah.
I wanted to make a donation.
Oh, okay.
I was wondering if I could talk to somebody, or...
Absolutely.
Wonderful.
Let me, have you talked to our VP of Development, and her name is Sue Riggs. Hello, this is Sue. May I help you?
Hi, Sue. I'm interested in making a donation.
Great.
So, would it be possible for me to donate that money specifically for these minority groups so that they could have access to abortions?
Yes, it would be.
Wonderful. And could I specify that abortion be done, or those abortions be done for a particular minority group, or how does that work?
If you wish, you can.
Okay. So for example, the black community in Tulsa, would it be possible to give the money specifically for that?
You sure can.
Wonderful. Great. The abortions will be done specifically for the black community abortions.
I will mark it in such a way that definitely it will.
On a black baby?
Yes.
Thank you. Great.
Okay.
So can I give you my credit card number?
Yes.
Thank you for calling the Planned Parenthood of New Mexico Administrative Offices. Hello, this is Irene.
Hi, I'm interested in making a donation today.
Did you want to do it by credit card, or did you want to send in a check?
I'd like to send in a check, hopefully an anonymous check because of the cause. I'd like to send in a check. I'd like to fund one abortion.
Okay.
I was wondering if that would be possible.
Yes, we can definitely put that.
Can I make the donation specifically for a minority group?
Like a specific group of color, or like a group of...
I mean, like, I want the abortion to be for an African-American baby.
Okay.
And I was wondering if that could be possible.
The exact amount we charge right now is $450 for an abortion.
Okay, $450.
Mm-hmm. And we can definitely designate it for an African-American.
Wonderful. Two things. I need your mailing address.
Okay.
I really want to do this, but I don't want to be put on any lists.
Yeah, we would definitely keep your donation anonymous.
Could you provide me with that?
Yeah. It's 719 San Mateo, Northeast. We're divided into quadrants here, so we're northeast, southeast, northwest.
Okay.
And we're northeast. Just to make it easy.
I understand.
Albuquerque.
And who should I address that to?
You can put it to my attention.
Should I also put attention to your vice president?
Her name is Roberta Velasquez.
If I wanted to help fund multiple abortions, could you also specify that this could be done for a specific group?
Mm-hmm.
Great. Well, I'm really excited, because I really face trouble with affirmative action. I don't want my kids to be disadvantaged, against blacks in college, and the less blacks out there, the better. So.
Yeah, it's a strange time for sure.
Yeah.
So, okay. Roberta just came in and she's giving me a list of different prices we charge depending on the week. So, the majority of them are $425.
Thank you so much, and you'll be receiving the check in a few days.
You never got this from me, just to make all of our lives easier.
Okay.
If they're 14
Yeah.
and under,
Yeah.
just send them right there if they need an abortion. Okay.
Let me start by asking this question. Is this an isolated incident that we just saw here on the screen, or is this the way Planned Parenthood operates?
This is a common occurrence for Planned Parenthood, unfortunately. This is something that many women are subjected to the cover-ups.
Its primary mission is to kill more babies for more money. You see, it's all about marketing.
And, you know, we are all good salespeople at Planned Parenthood, and that is our job. And with Planned Parenthood and their quotas and, you know, us trying to increase the amount of abortions, it's required.
The serene charm of Windfall, North Carolina. A sleepy town where the Perquimans River empties into the Albemarle Sound. But buried in the stillness of this place, it seems time has forgotten a secret shame.
It was sort of a hush-hush type of thing, and the records and files were all hidden away down in the basement, locked under a key.
Until this past summer, when the ugly truth about what happened here and in towns all across North Carolina could be hidden no more.
If there's anyone in this room that's too embarrassed to tell your story, don't be. Tell it. It needs to be told, and you need to tell it all.
There were a lot of stories that shocked those in the room that day. Stories of shame, confusion, grief. But one story, one single story seemed to rise above the rest.
I didn't want nobody looking at me because everybody knew what happened to me. That's how I felt inside. My heart bleeds every single day. I'm crushed. They cut me open like I was a hog.
Elaine Riddick's story began in Windfall, among the cotton fields that rose up to meet the tiny two-bedroom house she shared with her grandmother, affectionately known as Miss Peaches. When you come back here, is it nostalgic? Is it bittersweet? Does it bring up moments of anger?
All of the above. Sometimes I can come here and I am in, you know, I can look around me and I can find beauty in the ugliness, the ugly things that happened to me.
It was 1967. Elaine's mother was in prison. Her father had abandoned her, and 5 of her siblings were in an orphanage. Every adult she knew had betrayed her, with the exception of one, her grandmother.
She just paid special attention to me. And she loved me. And she just gave me something that I needed. Sorry.
But life was about to get worse for the poor, hungry little girl Miss Peaches tried to protect.
As I was walking home, I took the long road, and the next thing I know, I was drugged and I was attacked.
And you were raped?
And I was raped. And my life was threatened. That if I ever told anyone, that he was going to kill me.
And you were 13?
I was 13.
That brutal rape resulted in a pregnancy. Nearly 9 months to the day of the assault, she went into labor.
Got to the hospital, and they put me in a room, and that's all I remember. That's all I remember. When I woke up with bandages on my stomach.
Meaning what?
At that time, I didn't know what it meant.
What she didn't know was that the baby boy she gave birth to that day would be her last.
No one told me. I never even knew.
She had been sterilized, targeted by a state board that ordered that this kind of surgery be performed on thousands of North Carolinians from 1929 all the way to 1974. 7,600 men, women, and children determined by social workers to be feeble-minded or promiscuous were sterilized, usually without their consent, and it was perfectly legal.
Little boys, they would castrate them. Little girls, they would go inside them and take out their organs.
State Representative Larry Womble.
Why would they want to do that to a young girl?
Why did they?
Well, they had several reasons they thought were valid at that time.
Their reasons were based on a scientific theory called eugenics, which became popular in the 1920s. Eugenicists believed that poverty, promiscuity, and alcoholism were inherited traits. It was a simple theory with a radical solution: sterilize those the state would have to take care of and improve society's gene pool. Some of America's wealthiest citizens of the time were eugenicists. Dr. Clarence Gamble of the Procter & Gamble fortune and James Haynes of the Hosiery Company founded the Human Betterment League, which produced brochures like these, stoking fears of, quote, morons mixing with the general population.
Representative, when you look back, was this a well-intentioned idea with the best science at the time that then just went awry?
I don't know if that was the best intention to weed out negative things in our society. You're playing God over a whole group of people's lives, and I don't think we're supposed to play God like that.
31 states had legal eugenics programs, and by the late 1960s, tens of thousands of Americans had been sterilized, targeting more women and more blacks than whites.
It was a monetary, economic thing. Get them off of welfare so the state would not have to pay for their children. Some people have even expressed to me that it borders on genocide.
A third of sterilizations were ordered on girls under the age of 18, some as young as 9 years old.
What in the world will this lady do with my little child?
Yeah. I think he sterilized an entire caseload.
The voices of social workers involved with eugenic sterilization. You're hearing them broadcast for the first time, some of them explaining the decision to sterilize in these recordings made in 1997 by Rutgers professor Johanna Schoen.
What chance does another child have in his family? And I think a lot of motivation for workers probably came from that.
Over a period of a year or 2 years, he got all of the women sterilized. I think that was perhaps a little excessive.
In 1968, Americans were rebelling, protesting the Vietnam War, marching for civil rights. And while most states had abandoned their eugenics programs by then, the sterilization of poor Americans was still happening in North Carolina, and no one seemed to notice. So it was for Elaine Riddick that a signature on a dotted line sealed her fate. During the cesarean birth of her only son, her fallopian tubes were cut and tied off.
Again, our story continues right after this.
Last July, the Center for Investigative Reporting issued a shocking report about doctors sterilizing about 150 female inmates in California's prisons from 2006 to 2010, all without approval to do so. Inmates and prison advocates assert that the women were coerced into being sterilized by the prison medical staff, who were targeting women for tubal ligation whom they thought were likely to return to prison. And now, almost a year later, the California State Auditor found that the practice was being carried out as late as last year. Physicians didn't sign consent forms that guarantee the inmates knew they were about to be sterilized. They violated wait period requirements. Inmates were not allowed witnesses of their choosing. Conversations about the sterilization process went undocumented. And none of the procedures were authorized by an oversight committee. All of this flies in the face of the law. Most of the women tested at less than a high school level of reading, with about a third of them reading below the 6th grade level. And a sizable chunk of the requests for the sterilizations came out of one doctor's office, the office of Dr. James Heinrich. Dr. Heinrich told the Center for Investigative Reporting that the money spent sterilizing inmates was minimal compared to what you save in welfare paying for these unwanted children.
If you're curious to know why Mrs. Sanger has devoted her life to the birth control movement, we'll go after those stories in just a moment. Mrs. Sanger, you have helped to spread the birth control movement not only here in the United States, but in Europe and the Orient as well. Why? Why is birth control of such vital importance internationally? Is it just to save women suffering? Is that the only reason in your mind?
Well, not entirely. The population question is a great concern today. And the rate, we're saving them now. At one time, when children died, they didn't have the food. I think the birth control, if you keep your population more or less static until you pick up your resources.
In other words, these sterilizations sound pretty targeted, and that's what's not being discussed in this case. Everyone is focusing on how screwed up our prison systems are, and they are very screwed up. But this story goes beyond our prison problems into the land of eugenics. When you've got people being coerced into sterilization by doctors who say they're doing it to save money on welfare, that's eugenics, regulated breeding and population control. We've seen eugenics before. States used to have eugenics boards that sterilized people they deemed not fit for procreation. North Carolina is in the process right now of compensating victims of their eugenics board, which was shuttered in the 1970s. People like to think such social abominations as eugenics are a thing of the past. But now here we see evidence of eugenics today, and yet if you say the word eugenics, people will call you a conspiracy theorist. But when people are actually conspiring to sterilize citizens, there's nothing theoretical about it.
Welcome back as we now get back to our story. For decades, North Carolina sterilized people it deemed unfit, and it did so largely in secret. And now victims like Elaine Riddick are demanding answers from the government. Dr. Nancy Snyderman continues with Elaine's fight to rebuild her life and the state of shame that existed back then in North Carolina.
On the 4th floor of a government building in downtown Raleigh, North Carolina, thousands upon thousands of records few have ever seen.
These are the eugenics files?
Yes, and they're confidential. They're records that are not open to the general public.
State Archivist Dick Langford is the keeper of the files that hold the secrets of one of the most controversial practices of modern history, the mass sterilization of Americans against their will.
When you've looked at them, what was your initial response?
I look at them with a heavy heart because I realize these records, as patient records, have impact on people's lives.
When you look at these records, you realize they're from not that long ago, 1950s, 1960s, and they represent all kinds of people. Take this one, for instance, a teenager who was sterilized because she was deemed promiscuous at the age of 8. And here's one, a 16-year-old incest victim. Social workers got consent for her sterilization from the father who raped her.
And then there are the records of Elaine Riddick, sterilized after being raped at age 13. Social workers had declared her promiscuous, mentally retarded, unfit to procreate. But Elaine had something to prove.
I ended up going to college. I took the entrance exam. I passed. I got in.
And she graduated with an associate's degree from a technical college in 1982.
Is some of this you saying to them by your actions, you guys were so wrong?
Yes, definitely. Definitely. You know, I'm worthy. I don't know where I would be if I listened to the state of North Carolina.
Her proudest achievement has been her son, born 43 years ago and under unimaginable circumstances.
Hey, Mom.
Hi,
Good to see you. Good to see you.
Hi.
Hi, I'm Nancy.
How are you, Nancy? Nice to meet you.
You're Tony.
Thank you. Yes, Tony.
You're a strapping guy.
Thank you.
Today, Tony Riddick is a successful entrepreneur.
You must be unbelievably proud of your mother.
Oh, absolutely. I am. This is my buddy, my friend, my mother, everything, my sister. I'm proud of her because she never stopped fighting. You know, she continues to fight, and I think that's very important.
What do you want?
What do I want? Well, what do I want? I would like for the state of North Carolina to right what they wrong with me. At one point, I sued the state of North Carolina for $1 million, and that's been over 30-some years ago.
And what did you expect when you filed that suit for $1 million?
I expected for them to give me $1 million.
She got nothing. She lost her case against the state because a jury decided no laws were broken. She appealed it all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court, which declined to hear her argument.
I was embarrassed, and I was surprised.
All she and the other 7,600 victims have is an apology, emailed to the Winston-Salem Journal from then Governor Mike Easley in 2002. But after mounting pressure from reporters, the state decided to do more and convened a task force in 2003. Nothing resulted. Then another task force came and went.
We're the United States, for God's sakes. This was so wrong.
Which brings us back to that day last summer when victims and their families had their say, in front of another government task force assigned to determine how they should be compensated.
What do you think I'm worth? What do you think I'm worth? It doesn't matter what you think I'm worth, it's what I think I'm worth.
Priceless. Yes, ma'am.
There's nothing that the state of North Carolina can do to justify what they did to me, what they did to these other victims.
They told me to sign papers. I didn't sign no papers. I ain't never signed the papers. That was not my signature on these papers.
North Carolina is the only state to consider compensation in the range of $20,000 to $50,000. But Tony Riddick, standing up for his mother and the other victims, said that's too little, too late.
And my mother's been sitting here suffering for 43 years and nothing has been done. This is sinister. And I'm so afraid that they're going to try to wait till all these people die. And that's a shame. That's a mark. It's an ugly chapter in North Carolina's book. We must step up to the plate and we must realize, take responsibility.
There is nobody in North Carolina who is waiting for anybody to die. Again,
Bev Perdue is North Carolina's governor.
To stand up and say, I want this solved on my watch. I want there to be completion.
Is there a plan to help these people?
Our plan is very thoughtful, I believe. We have gone through the process of having the hearings. You have to have people who self-report. I can't.
Why? I mean, you have the records. Why not proactively go out and find these people?
Because even if you go out and proactively find them, there are lots of people, just like in other medical cases, who don't want their data shared. They want
Even
to
if it's
know
money?
Nancy, from my perspective as a woman and as the governor of this state, this is not about the money. There isn't enough money in the world to pay these people for what has been done to them.
As the Riddicks await the state's decision, they focus on the part of the family legacy that really matters.
There's something to be said about young men who are raised by strong women.
Yes, ma'am. I got my cup overfloweth.
Go!
Every day they appreciate life's simple gifts, finding joy in Tony Jr., who has yet to understand his grandmother's place in a terrible chapter of American history.
He gives me the love. So with that, I can do anything in the world that I want to do. And I can be anybody I want to be.